So I got COVID. That is not fun, I can tell you that much, it's no fun at all. I do not recommend to get corona, but maybe I can interest you in some VR games instead. What do you say? This month is a good one, a lot of very unique looking titles are announced, but before we get to them, as always, let's have a look at the biggest releases of the last month. The main thing of last month obviously was the PSVR2. People seem to like it, especially non-VR focused media were pretty enthusiastic. The coverage from VR native media was a bit more critical, pointing out the noticeable screen door effect and problems with motion blur and ghosting. Apart from that, the PSVR2 is a very solid headset for sure. If you are the proud owner of a PS5, this is probably the best way to get into VR right now. If not, it's a pretty hefty investment. For that kind of money, PCVR is also a good option that comes with a far larger library of games. Speaking of which, Horizon Call of the Mountain dropped together with the PSVR2 to a strong 81 on OpenCritic. Usually mainline games media tend to ignore VR releases, but not this time, this is too big. Let's see if they continue to give VR at least a bit of coverage even after the PSVR2 hype has slowed down, that would be nice. Upload VR gave Call of the Mountain the essential badge. Quote, Horizon Call of the Mountain is a brilliant way to kick off PSVR2 and remains compelling until the very end. By leaning into the medium's physicality, Firesprite and Guerrilla created a game that could only work in VR and simultaneously feels faithful to the Horizon franchise. While I wouldn't call the gameplay revelatory, what's here feels incredibly polished and looks absolutely stunning. This is undoubtedly an essential game for all PlayStation VR2 owners. End quote. Great to see that the game is received so well. I was worried that it might fall flat. It's good to be wrong sometimes. The VR ports of Resident Evil Village and Gran Turismo 7 were also very well received, no surprises there, as these were free updates and great games to begin with. The only other noteworthy game of last month was a roguelike shooter, The Light Brigade, which released on PCVR, the Quest 2 and the PSVR2, and people absolutely love it. It got a 93% very positive on Steam. Road to VR gave it a great 8.5 out of 10. Quote, favorably comparing a VR roguelike to In Death is fairly high praise already. However, the Light Brigade seems to do an even better job of enticing you back for more as you make successive attempts at conquering the dark forces that have removed light from the fantasy universe. The game's color palette is a bit too muddy, making for not so awesome visual contrast, but that's small potatoes when looking at the bigger picture. End quote. This is one to keep on the radar for sure. VRNOID is a mix between classic arcade brick breaker games like Breakout or Arkanoid with air hockey. Together with a Tron-inspired visual style and a retrowave soundtrack, this is a perfect 80s throwback experience. There are tons of levels to complete, power-ups to pick up and bosses to fight. There will be some mechanics thrown in that are only possible in VR, for example you will need to dodge or reflect bullets. Apart from the Breakout style brick breaker game, you can also straight up play air hockey. There will be local multiplayer with the second player playing on the flat screen and an in-game level editor. I played a demo build of this game about a year ago and it already felt very polished back then. As this video is a bit late, the game is already out now. VRNOID did release on March 4th for PCVR on Steam and for the Quest via the App Lab. Guardians Frontline is a sci-fi themed hybrid of first-person shooter and real-time strategy game. Get into the action up close and personal with a wide range of weapons, including but not limited to grenades, auto rifles, laser pistols, bazookas, bow and arrows or the gravity gun. Meanwhile, you will be able to spawn in and control units and structures, maneuver mechs and airships and keep an overview over the battlefield, over resources, enemies and allies with a tactical minimap. The game has a single player campaign that is also playable in 4-player co-op mode and PvP modes with up to 8 players. There's an in-game map editor and already hundreds of community created maps to explore. The game is directly inspired by Halo and StarCraft and tries to be, a combination of those two concepts. Guardians Frontline was in early access on Steam and the App Lab for 2 years now under the name Guardians. On Steam it sits at an impressive 88% very positive. The full release will come to Steam and the Quest 2 on March 9th with a whole bunch of optimizations and the name change to Guardians Frontline.
were just kids last I saw you. And now I've got Arthur down the ear saying give me a chance. But I'm not Arthur. How do I know you're anything but a traitor?
The King's Ransom is a VR action-adventure game set in the Peaky Blinders universe. You are on the run from the firing squad for over a decade now and finally turn to Tommy Shelby for help. With that, you become involved in a hunt for Winston Churchill's Red Box, a briefcase containing the identities of every British agent around the globe, which has the potential to bring the whole country to its knees. Not surprising that every criminal faction wants a piece of it. Explore the gritty streets of 1920s London and Birmingham, visit location from the show and come face to face with some of the show's characters, voiced by the original actors. The developer Maze Theory have previously done a VR adaptation of Doctor Who that landed to middling reviews. Let's see if they can do better with this one. The game is scheduled to release on March 9th for the Quest 2 and the Pico 4. There is already a Steam page for the game, so there will probably be a PC release at some point, but we do not know if and when that will be the case. For now, the team focuses on getting the game out on standalone VR.
Now you see that tower out there? Big, scary one? That's where I'm taking you to see the gatekeeper. To be judged. Your life. You're gonna show it to me. Just think back to the very beginning, the first thing that you can remember.
This is a unique one. Before Your Eyes released as a flat game on Steam in 2021 to an overwhelmingly positive reception. It is a narrative adventure game that tells the story of a soul's journey to the afterlife. For you to pass on, the ferryman must know your story, so he sends you back to relive the most important moments of your life. The game has a unique mechanic, you control it with your eyes alone. For that to work, you had to use a webcam and film yourself while playing. That was optional, you could also control it with a mouse, but the eye tracking thing is how it was supposed to be played. On March 10th the game gets a VR port exclusive to the PSVR2, obviously using the headset's eye tracking feature. The game has a very emotional story, so get ready to shed some tears.
Now, the next time that you blink, I'm gonna send you back. And just try to enjoy it this time.
The Dark Pictures Switchback VR is a spiritual successor of Supermassive's PSVR game Until Dawn Rush of Blood from 2016. It's an on-rails, literally on-rails, horror shooter, this time within the Dark Pictures franchise, because that is what Supermassive games are doing now. Come face to face with the most terrifying antagonist from season 1 of the anthology. Survive the ghost ship and its distorted apparitions, confront hideous demonic incarnations of persecuted witches, fight for your life against otherworldly vampires and escape the horrifying World's Fair Hotel sadistic serial killer. The game uses the PSVR2 eye tracking technology for gameplay elements. Mannequins will change position or even come to life and attack you when you blink, for example. Though it is on rails, the tracks will have branching paths, giving the game some replay value. The Dark Pictures Switchback VR is scheduled to release on March 16th, exclusive to the PSVR2.
There we go, hold it there. We got it. Dad.
Alex, where are you? Please, God, tell me you're out of the city.
The team behind the beloved VR mod for Half-Life 2 is hard at work, not only to improve the VR experience of the main game, but also to bring the expansions to VR. Half-Life 2 Episode 1 is the first of 2 standalone expansions, involves iconic shooter franchise. The story picks up directly after the events of the main game. You once again take up the role of Gordon Freeman. With your partner Alex Vance at your side, you try to escape the collapsing Citadel and City 17. The same room-scale VR experience that made the mod of the main game so popular is applied here. It features intuitive and realistic weapon interactions with quick weapon switching via a radial menu, ammo storage over your shoulder, functional iron sights, two-handed weapons and manual reloading. Optional laser sights and an arcade-style quick reload are available for those that want it. The VR mod for Episode 1 will be available for free on March 17th. You have to own the expansion on Steam though, but as it is a standalone expansion you don't have to own the main game. As it is still early days for VR, there are genres in flat gaming that are not yet explored in this new medium. One of these genres is the escape from Tarkov style extraction game that have become rather popular lately. Ghosts of Tabor is here to fill that gap. Inspired directly by Tarkov and DayZ, it is the self-proclaimed only VR extraction based survival game on the market as of now. Well, not now as it is not released yet, but the only one that is announced so far. You will drop in on a large map together with a couple of other players, fight off set players and AI opponents, grab what you can and try to stay alive to extract with your loot. You will have to take care of thirst and hunger, you will be able to trade for better gear with in-game vendors or with other players, you can customize weapons and craft items and ammunition. Ghosts of Tabor will release into early access on Steam on March 20th. A release for the Quest 2, PICO devices and the PSVR2 are announced but without a date so far. They already have a ton of pre-order packs and merch for sale, which I find to be a bit off-putting. The game will have to stand for itself first. So far they are mainly farming the exciting idea of playing a VR version of Escape from Tarkov.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Our main stories tonight.
What do you make of this historic election result?
I'd say that's fair.
As reported by this very program.
Chris, going in 5.
In Not For Broadcast, it is your task to edit a live TV show. You choose which camera feeds to show, you will have to censor profanity and control interference to ensure a high broadcast quality. The game takes place in an alternate history 80s UK that has fallen under the control of an authoritarian regime, so you're also responsible for censoring anti-government statements. Not For Broadcast was released as a flat game just last year to critical acclaim and has won a couple of indie game awards. The flat game already looks like it was made for VR, so the port seems to be a logical conclusion. The VR version is scheduled to release on March 23rd for PCVR on Steam and for the Quest 2. This will be a standalone title, so if you already own the flat version you will have to buy the game again. Vertigo was quite the anomaly when it appeared in the early days of VR back in 2016. It is one of the titles that pioneered and pushed the medium forward, despite being made by a single individual. The game got a remaster in 2020 with a new visual style and modernized VR mechanics that was well received, but at core it was still a 2016 game. The sequel promises the modernization the franchise deserves. Vertigo 2 is a single-player action-adventure game. Waking up in the underground passages of Quantum Reactor 7, you continue your endeavor to escape. There will be more of everything in the sequel, a wide range of environments to explore, large enemy variety with dozens of creatures and robots to fight, a large arsenal of weapons, each with its unique reload mechanics, fully voiced characters and intense boss fights, all within an expansive campaign. Vertigo 2 is scheduled to release on March 30th for PCVR on Steam. Before we sign off, there's a bit more VR gaming news we can go over really quick. The sequel to The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners that dropped last year on standalone devices and we already covered multiple times in this series is scheduled to release for PCVR on Steam and for the PSVR2 on March 21st. The VR Battle Royale Population 1 goes free to play on March 9th. If you already purchased the game, you will get some banana themed skins as a compensation, and I'm not even kidding. The whole thing is a bit strange though, as only the Quest version of the game will be free to play, the Steam version you'll still have to buy. They claim that this is to discourage cheating, which is a reasonable explanation. The studio behind the game, Big Box VR, is completely owned by Meta, so your guess is as good as mine if that also played a part in that decision. That is it for March, pretty strong month for VR. The whole industry is riding the PSVR2 hype wave and I hope that it will show no signs of slowing down anytime soon. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on VR gaming news. Content was a bit slow last month due to me moving to a new apartment and then the whole corona thing, but we are back now baby and it feels good. See you on the next one.